Well, hello everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome. How is everybody doing? I hope you're well. We're ready to begin another session of Torah study. This week is Parshiot Behar and Bechukotai. We have two Parshiot together. Once in a while it happens. And let's see who is here. We have Judge Rocky Pollack, Dr. Debbie Pollack, Judy Sharak, Phyllis Slaveman. Good to see you last night. Thank you so much. Yeah, last night we have the fourth session of the Machloket series. That it was kind of organized by the Council of Rabbis. It's done over Zoom, which is, it's okay, I guess. I'm still rusty on Zoom. At least we have a moderator taking care of that nobody was talking all at the same time and things. So it was kind of cool. Oh, an echo. Sorry. Thank you, Debbie. You know why I had the echo? Because I was recording. I'm putting together a concert for Yom Yerushalayim. It's kind of a different concert. It's going to be a series of music videos all about Yerushalayim. And I was recording today. I've been in my studio for the last week or so. And sometimes I forget to change the settings, and this is what happened. But that's why I have you to let me know when things are good and when things are not so good. Yeah, no, there is no echo now. I just muted it. You see, let me show you how this is. I wanna show you. Hi, Rina. Welcome. I want to show you to all of you what my studio looks a little bit in the other side. What is what I see, and what do I have it? Where do I have it? I want to show you. You see, this is this here. This is what I have in front of me, and that is all the audio settings. And sometimes if I forget to touch one thing, everything goes wrong. So, yeah. So now you know a little bit of the secrets. Okay. So let's begin with the class for today. As I mentioned, two Parshiot, Behar and Bechukotai. Behar, which means on the mount, it's talking about Mount Sinai. And Bechukotai, Chukotai comes from the word Chukot, or Chok, Chukim, which is actually Chukim, Chok, which means it's one of the categories of the mitzvot. Mainly the mitzvot, the commandments from the Torah, could be divided in two main groups, even though some people divide it into three. But the two main groups are Chukim and Mishpatim. Chukim are all the things that they are illogical. In other words, we do it because God said so. It's not something that we will come out by our own if we have to think about specific laws for a society. And those, yeah, Debbie, so mitzvot that we can rationalize. I mean, we could rationalize it. In fact, the rabbis for generations, they tried to rationalize, to give it a meaning. But yet, it's not something that is obvious when you read it. Let's put it that way. And then mishpatim are those that, according to the rabbis, are those laws, those mitzvot that even if the Torah had never been revealed, society would most likely will figure out those laws or something similar. Those are the mishpatim. And there is a third category that the rabbis talk about, the testimonials, which basically are the holidays. And there's something that they serve a specific purpose, which is to commemorate or to remember a specific historical event. So those are the three categories that we have for the mitzvot, and that's why we have the Parsha Bechukotai, and they're talking specifically about this mitzvot difficult to rationalize. Oh yeah, then you have a custom, the how you call it, the minhag. No, but I'm talking about things from the Torah. Of course, after the Torah was closed, was canonized, then we still have the Rabbinic law, like Hanukkah, for example, or Purim, that is not necessarily in the Torah. And we also have the minhag, the traditions, things that they are not in the Torah. The rabbis never regulate that, but nevertheless we do it. Just why? Tradition. So that's the thing. But from the Torah, 2 main categories. Some people think 3. Okay? So if we have time today, we might scratch the surface about this Hukim and Mishpatim and so forth. But for now, I want to start with the first of the 2 Parshiot, Behar. And it's very interesting because at the very beginning of the Parsha, we find the Torah talking about the sabbatical year. And you know what I'm talking about? Sabbatical year. That is, the same way that we celebrate Shabbat once a week. Well, every 7 years, we're supposed to let the land rest. And when I say the land, is the land of Israel. Okay? So it's something that, believe it or not, still happening. When you buy Israeli products, most likely they follow the laws of the Shemitah, the sabbatical year. So 6 years the farmers will work the land, and on the 7th they can't do anything. So if you have products coming from Israel that involves produce from the 7th year, then they cannot get the kosher certification. Of course, there are always workarounds, but long story short, that's the way it is. Hello, John, son of David. Welcome. Welcome to the class. Welcome to the class. So, let's start with this first text. I'm going to get my thing here. This is again from Parshat Behar. And it says, "The Lord spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai. Speak to the Israelite people and say to them, when you enter the land that I assign to you, the land shall observe a Sabbath of the Lord." Okay? Now, Rashi is a little bit intrigued by the wording of this text. And I'm going to show you in a minute what Rashi says about it. But he's intrigued and say, hold on a minute. The episode of Sinai happened long ago. You have to go all the way back to the Exodus. Now we are in the book of Leviticus. So why the connection with the book of Exodus? We start first revelation right now to talk about the sabbatical year. Any guesses? I would like to see you guys using the chat. Any guesses why now the Torah make this connection with Mount Sinai when historically it's not happening right now? It already happened. I would like to see what you think, and only then I'm gonna show you what Rashi thinks about it. I will give you a minute. You see, too bad today I already finished my coffee. I was drinking my coffee while the timer was playing before the class. And you know what? I should actually get a sponsorship from Nespresso because that's what I have. So if I'm already drinking the coffee during class, maybe we should get a little bit of money from them. Any idea? I guess nobody is saying anything. Then I will show you what Rashi has to say about the connection between this verse and Mount Sinai. Very interesting. Listen to this. He says, what has the sabbatical year to do with Mount Sinai? Were not all the commandments given at Sinai? But the verse wishes to tell us, just as with the sabbatical year, both its general principles and its minute details were ordained at Mount Sinai, so too was it with all the commandments. Their general principles as well as their minute details were ordained on Mount Sinai. This is what happened. If you go back to the Parsha, of course, at the beginning, I show you just a couple of verses, but you keep reading and you have every single detail about the sabbatical year. Everything. And Rashi is implying here that the Torah purposely links all those details to Mount Sinai to make us know that even though sometimes some of the details are not written in the Torah, it doesn't mean that they were not revealed by God. What does Rashi feel that he needs to make this clear? Because this is going to be the foundation of the authority of the oral law. In other words, everything that you read in the Talmud, most of it is, I don't know if you ever had the opportunity to study Talmud. Some of the Talmud is going to be logic. You don't really need oral law. Some of the Talmud is rabbis analyzing verses, connecting them, and then making sense of what's going on, without the need of any kind of extra help from God to know what to do. But there are many other things that the reason given by the rabbis of why we have to do certain things is because it was commanded to us orally by God. What does it mean? That the Torah sometimes will mention a very brief sentence, a very brief law without any details, and all the details are going to come through oral tradition. And that is going to be recorded in the Talmud. So Rashi seems to find here some kind of proof of this concept, because the same way he says that this law was given here with all the details and is connected to Sinai, then that means that every other law that it was also given on Sinai was given with all the details. And that was communicated to Moses. Let's see a few of the comments here. Hi, Shelly Chochinov, welcome. Debbie, you said it goes back to creation with the rest of the seventh day. Yeah, but that's the Shabbat, the concept of Shabbat. Shelly, you said it's a blanket commandment. It covers all. Not a blanket commandment, but it said that every single commandment was given on Sinai. And not only that, it was given on Sinai with all the details, even if the details are not necessarily written in the Torah. You see, if we go to the Talmud, let me put the other slide here. This is the way, according to the Talmud, that this happened. Rabbi Ishmael says the general principle of the Torah were given at Sinai, and the details when God spoke to Moses in the tent of meeting. Remember, I taught this long time ago, how how halakha actually happens, and the way it happens is that God is, and it's recorded in the Torah. Once in a while, God will call Moses to the tent of meeting, that it was part of the tabernacle of the sanctuary that they built in the desert. So, and God will call Moses from there, almost like a telephone booth, just to teach Moses Torah. So what Rabbi Ishmael says here is that he believes, I guess that's the way he learned it from his masters, from his teachers, that at Sinai, God only revealed the general principles of the Torah. And then all the details were given to Moses during the tent of meeting. Those phone calls from God, when Moses will go to pick up the red phone. Let's put it that way. But then Rabbi Akiva disagrees. Rabbi Akiva says the general principles and the details were given at Sinai. They were then repeated in the tent of meeting and enjoyed a third time in the plains of Moab. That means in Moses' narrative in the book of Deuteronomy. So this is the disagreement. I guess both of them agree that everything was given on Sinai, but they disagree as to where the details were taught. And this is very interesting because this disagreement has huge implications. Because if they were actually revealed on Sinai, it's something that happened in front of everybody. And if they were given to Moses, then it's a totally different story. There is an intermediary between God and the people of Israel at the time of teaching Torah. So it has some interesting theological implications, accepting the words of Rabbi Ishmael or accepting the words of Rabbi Akiva. Now, Rashi seems to agree with Rabbi Akiva in the sense that the opening verses of this week's Parsha seems to be a proof that all general principles and details were both revealed at Sinai. Let's see if we have more comments here. Interesting about the numbers, 7 sabbatical years, and then Yovel on the 50th. It sounds like Shavuot. Yeah, so, okay, let's study a little bit about that before I move to the next verse. And is what is a sabbatical year? Is again every 7 years, and then when you have 7 cycles of 7, that is called the Yovel or the Jubilee. And it used to be a big celebration back in the day where all the debts will be forgiven, and then if you lost your property because you had to sell it in the past because you needed the money, that property comes back to you. It's a very powerful the idea was brilliant, but it's interesting that the rabbi said that it never really happened. They always found loopholes, so they will never have to return the land to the original owner, so they would never have the need to forgive any debts. Too bad, because the idea was beautiful. The whole idea of the Yovel, of the Jubilee, is that nothing lasts forever. You could go through a difficulty, a challenge. Something is wrong in your life, and then you despair. But the concept is don't despair, because Jubilee is coming. It may be 49 years from now, it might be next year. But the Jubilee, every day that you live, Jubilee is one day closer. So it's an invitation to have faith that doesn't matter what you're going through right now, it already has an end date. That was the concept of the Jubilee. To teach that concept to the Jewish people and to the world, that doesn't matter what you are going through, eventually is going to end. Rocky Pollack, let's see. Regardless of the time of the details were revealed, if they come from Hashem, why is there so much room for discourse and disagreement about the details? Were the imperfect details? I will talk about that in a minute. Andrea, that's a powerful message. Nothing lasts forever. Yeah, I believe that. So, Rocky, let me answer to you. And it might be a kind of a long answer, and maybe what I should say is last night I taught a class for this machloket that I was teaching. It was a class over Zoom organized by the Council of Rabbis, and we are having 5 sessions. I already taught number 4. Next week is number 5 with Rabbi Anibal. And it's all about that. It's all about how come there is so much disagreement about the details. And there is this beautiful midrash that says that God revealed the Torah, and for every mitzvah, God taught Moses 49 reasons why, for example, an object is pure, and 49 reasons why the object is impure. You get that? And then they say, let me see if I can find here quickly the midrash, because it's a beautiful thing. Let me show it to you. Where would it be? I believe it's here. Here, let's see. It doesn't work because it's showing me the other PowerPoints. I cannot show you like that. I can probably do like this. Hold on. I can probably do like this. Huh. There you go. There you go. It says, Rabbi and I said the Torah was not given in a clear-cut manner. Rather, on every statement that God said to Moses, he will say 49 reasons the matter will be pure and 49 reasons why the matter will be impure. Moses said to God, Master of the universe, when will we know the truth for the matter? And God said to Moses, go according to the majority. The majority rules is impure, it's impure. The majority rules is pure, it's pure. Yeah, that is that is the principle that it was taught in every single of the 5 sessions that we are talking about. Machloket means disagreement. So this is the basis of Rabbinic Judaism. The fact that because the details were taught orally and then passed from generation to generation, we can never know. We can't be sure of the general principle. It's just we can't. So we have to deal with that. And the whole idea is to learn to disagree in order that together we can get closer to the truth. That's the principle. And then we have, of course, the concept of discussion for the sake of heaven and discussion that is not for the sake of heaven. It's basically having constructive disagreement or not. So yeah, the details are I wouldn't say a problem, but it's a challenge. It's a challenge. Rabbinic Judaism has that kind of challenge because it's based on oral law. And yeah, Rocky, you can still catch the next class, I believe. That is next Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Okay, let's continue. Back to the opening verses. Again, the Lord spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai, saying, "Speak to the Israelite people and say to them, when you enter the land that I assign to you, the land shall observe a Sabbath of the Lord." Okay, so I would like to read for you something that was written by the Lubavitcher Rebbe. What he's about to say is something very interesting, because we know that Shabbat is always at the end of a cycle. Purposely, Shabbat is not the first day of the week, but the last day of the week. That was actually kind of a disagreement, and we still have this disagreement with the secular calendar. The secular calendar starts on Sunday, and Sunday is the day of rest. In other words, in the secular calendar, the first day of the week is a day of rest. In the Hebrew calendar, the last day of the week is a day of rest. So Shabbat, when Shabbat was commanded in the Torah, they said for 6 days you have to work, and on the 7th you're going to rest. But here, when the Torah is talking about the sabbatical year, it seems to reverse the order, and it seems to imply when you enter the land that I assigned to you, the land shall observe a Sabbath of the Lord. It seems to imply, whoa, hold on a minute. So as soon as we enter the land right away, that year should be a sabbatical year? You understand what I'm saying? So it seems to imply that the order of the verses is wrong. It should say when you enter the land, you should work the land for 6 years, and then on the 7th is going to be Sabbath of the Lord. But it does not say that. So the Lubavitcher Rebbe finds this a little weird, and he's going to give us his opinion of why the Torah says that as soon as you enter to the land, you should observe a Sabbath of the Lord. Let's read it together. He says, taken on its own, this verse seems to imply that a Sabbath unto God is to be observed immediately upon entering the land. But in practice, when the Jewish people entered the land of Israel, they first worked the land for 6 years, and only then observed the 7th year as a Shemitah, sabbatical year. as indeed the Torah clearly instructs in the following verses. The Torah is telling us that a Shemitah is to both precede and follow our 6 years of labor. To follow it on the calendar, but to also precede it, if not in actuality, then conceptually. I don't know if you're following. Try to build an idea what the Rebbe is saying here as I read the next part. He continues. Therein lies an important lesson in how we are to approach the mundane involvements of life. True, we begin with the material, for in a world governed by cause and effects, the means inevitably precede the end. But what is first in actuality need not to be first in mind. In mind and consciousness, the end must precede the means. For without a clear vision of their purpose to guide them, the means may begin to see themselves as the end. The spiritual harvest of a Shabbat or Shemitah can be achieved only after a work week of dealing with the material world and developing its resources. But it must be preceded and predicated upon a Sabbath unto God that occupies the fore of our consciousness and pervades our every deed. I don't know if you understand what the Rebbe is saying here. We are in a situation here almost like the chicken and the egg. Because the idea of Shabbat is to serve as a break, as a peaceful break for a week of work. But at the same time, that same Shabbat, it's to serve as an inspiration for the next week. So after the very first Shabbat in history, every Shabbat serves a dual purpose. Do you understand that? Dual purpose. One is to end the week, but at the same time to inspire the next week. So, what the Torah is saying here is when you enter the land, that inspiration that comes with the Shabbat should be in your mind. And then with that feeling is that you are going to enter the 6-year cycle of planting and taking care of the land. Same thing happening every week that we have. Yes, of course, he said, you have to work for 6 days and then you will have the Shabbat. But you don't go to work into those 6 days just like that. You have to bring that spirituality that Shabbat gives you with you. So the question is, and of course I redacted what the Rebbe said. It's a much longer article, but he was saying is, according to the Midrash, when God created the world, God observed a symbolic Shabbat before creation. In other words, God created the concept of Shabbat before creation, and with that concept of Shabbat, creation came to be. So it's like a spiritual Shabbat, not a physical Shabbat. So that's what the Torah is talking about. When you enter to the land, you have to bring the spirit of Shabbat into the land, and then with that spirit, yes, go ahead and become a farmer and work the land, but not before that. Any comments? I want to see what you think. Well, you take your time and you type into the chat box. I'm going to continue with the next one. Now, we're going to switch gears and go to the next theme of the Parsha, which is it's talking about fraud, or in the language of Torah, wronging one another. That is going to be the next thing. And it goes like this. I say, when you sell property to your neighbor or buy any from your neighbor, you shall not wrong one another. And then the Torah says, do not wrong one another, but fear your God, for I, the Lord, am your God. And before we start analyzing this, let me bring the words of Rashi, his interpretation of these verses. Rashi says, the first verse refers to financial fraud. See, let check it again. When it says, when you sell property to your neighbor or buy any from your neighbor, you shall not wrong one another. According to the Rashi, that is financial fraud. The second verse forbids verbal fraud, speaking hurtful words or giving bad advice. That is why the second verse adds, but you shall fear your God, lest any person say, who will know that my intention was to do with him evil? So, in other words, and this is something that is constantly happening in the Torah, when there are some commandments that cannot be prosecuted by the courts here on earth, right? It's sometimes you can say things to other people and you can get away with it. Sometimes there is not really a law that it will stop you from doing certain things, even though you know that is wrong. So those are the cases when the Torah will add, but fear your God. Yes, maybe you have nothing to fear about terrenal judges or courts of justice, because they cannot do anything to you. But you have to be aware that God is watching on everything you do or you say. That's the concept here. Because yes, if you sell your property or buy anything and you cheat into that business, you will be caught and there is a punishment for that. But for certain things that you say, there is not. Of course, sometimes if it's something that you are, there are certain, punishments for things that you may say to another person, defamation and so forth. But in daily life, most of the things, they go unpunished, even though we are aware of what we say. So that's why Rashi will say that we need to understand that above all, God is there. So John, what you say here, the land in his command will mean both the land, ground, and also people. Will people be required to rest the whole seventh year? No, there is no rest in the seventh year. It's not the rest like a Shabbat, not according to the Torah. It's just that the land has to rest. You cannot do anything with it. That means you cannot harvest and you cannot seed, which means that usually you will have a problem for 2 years. Because if during the seventh year you cannot plant anything, then on the 8th year or on the first year of the cycle, most likely there is not much that you're going to get. So it was kind of difficult to live, I guess, in that kind of society, and it took lots of preparation and savings and to be sure that the world could continue even without working the land. Yeah, and we know that it's possible because we saw that Joseph did that with Egypt. That in fact he saved for 7 years. This is something you have to do for one. Shelley, you said fields are left fallow for the year. Yeah, you cannot do anything. You have to let it. Now I guess science will argue that the whole idea was to allow the land to regain the nutrients. Otherwise you kill the land if you work the land without any rest. Rocky, you said usual fear is a gem's general deterrent. It's what I guess the word fear is understood differently in different situations. You see, let's see what's here is veyareta in Hebrew. That's the word that it says for fear, and that's ira. Ira, it's fear. Yeah. Sometimes they try to translate it as awe and thing, but no. In this case, I believe what is implying is that it's going to be a punishment. So it's the fear of punishment, and many times that is the only way people understand. That's they should not do something because there is a punishment waiting for them if they actually do what is wrong. And in this case, the Torah is trying to compare divine justice with the justice we have here on earth. And God is a general deterrent. I like that word. But it is kind of that with this. But let's keep moving, because what I wanted to say here is we all understand financial fraud. I don't think we have to stop and think and discuss about it. I want to talk more about what is the verbal fraud, which sometimes we use it a lot. And I also wanted to expand on the concept of cheating. Sometimes we cheat many things. A school, for example. What about if you cheat on an exam? It's not financial, but that cheating on an exam, for example, halachically falls into the category of verbal fraud. Even though it's written, but it falls into that category of verbal fraud. I would say that sometimes it's difficult to understand what's so wrong about it. If you ask kids at school, they will tell you that they cannot see why cheating at school is so bad after all. Do you have any idea or anything you would like to share of why you think, for example, I want to be specific here, why do you think cheating at school or a university is so bad? If you would like to share that, I would like to hear it. Meanwhile, let me continue with the Rambam, the Maimonides, that he's talking specifically about cheating. And he says, and similarly, lies, tricks, subterfuges, cheatings, and circumventions are forbidden. They said it is forbidden to deceive anyone, and even more so when it can lead to the desecration of God's name. You see, he's taking it from here. He said, do not wrong one another, but fear your God, for I the Lord am your God. In other words, if you are sinning by committing verbal fraud or cheating, you are desecrating the name of God. That's why the verse ends with, for I, the Lord, am your God. Okay? So this is what Maimonides is saying. Let me keep reading, then I will read the chat here. For that is a great sin and imbues in a person bad traits. Maimonides is even saying here that if you get used to it, then it's going to get worse and worse, because this kind of cheating mentality will become part of you. And all this wicked action, God explained that he will be disgusted with them and with those who perform them, as it says in the book of Deuteronomy, for anyone who does this is an abomination of God. Okay? So, very interesting. Maimonides is adding one layer. And it is every time we commit this kind of verbal fraud, we are desecrating the name of God. And once again, it's something I say, what's the big deal? Am I going to go to jail because of that? And the answer is not. But from a Jewish point of view, desecrating the name of God, or almost like disappointing God, is a very, very bad thing. Let's see what it says. Andrea, you say, so lying is also verbal fraud. Yes. If someone did something against the law and they say that they didn't, that's verbal fraud of what kind? Yeah, that is, it is verbal fraud. It's not saying the truth. Any kind of misrepresentation of the truth is a verbal fraud. And we are going to talk more about that in a minute. Jerome, you said makes it easier to continue throughout life. Yeah, sometimes it makes it easier until it's not easy anymore. Sometimes it's something that we keep piling up until it's too heavy to keep on our shoulders. Judge Pollack, you said cheating enables someone to obtain something dishonestly, such a high test score or lower amount of income tax. So it's kind of fraud. Aha! You're getting close to what I think it is, Rocky. You're basically, what I think it is, and this is why sometimes we have this kind of gut feeling that cheating is bad, but we cannot put our finger on it. I believe that cheating is stealing. So if you think it that way, it's much easier to understand how bad it is. So when we are talking about, in the verse, here, let me go back. When we are talking about what it says, financial fraud, many times at the end of the day, verbal fraud could also be financial fraud. Not immediately, but it has the potential to become that in the future. Let me show you an example. And this is a response. This is part of a letter that it was sent to a rabbi. Rabbi Menashe Klein was a Hasidic Rebbe. It was specifically somebody asking him about cheating. What's so bad about cheating at school? And this is what he answered. Cheating is a clear violation of Geneivat Da'at. You see, I like this because he's putting a label to this kind of sin, this kind of transgression. This verbal fraud, this rabbi, he said, this is how you call it. Geneivat Da'at. That here is translated as cheating. You see, you know what a ganev is? Ganev is a robber, a thief. And that is the mind or ideas. So basically, stealing of the mind. So cheating is a clear violation of Geneivat Da'at, both against the professor and against future employers who take grades to be a measurement of competence. What about that? So now you can understand why even cheating at school could become financial fraud. Because now you have all these beautiful marks at school. Eventually you're going to use that in your resume to get your job. And you may end up getting that job over another person who actually didn't cheat at school and now is not getting the job because of your cheating. So it has financial implications. Think about athletes when they cheat. Do you realize that sometimes the sponsorships that they receive on their careers is based on their success? So if your success is based on cheating, you are stealing those sponsorships from the other one, another athletes that they did not cheat. They play fairly, but they are not getting the sponsorship. So you're robbing it from them. So yeah, it might not be something that you can see right away, but that is a big problem with cheating and verbal fraud and all that. And that's sometimes I believe it's important to put our thoughts in order so we can understand clearly what it is so bad about cheating. Any comments? So, let me also summarize right now what is Geneivat Da'at, so you have a better idea. So the literal meaning of Geneivat Da'at in Hebrew is theft of one's mind, thoughts, wisdom, or knowledge. For example, fooling someone and thereby causing him or her to have a mistaken assumption, belief, and or impression. Thus, the term is used in Jewish law to indicate deception, cheating, creating a false impression, and acquire undeserved goodwill. Geneivat Da'at goes beyond lying. Any words of action that cause others to form incorrect conclusions about one's motive might be a violation of this prohibition. One does not have the right to diminish the ability of another person to make a fair and honest evaluation, whether in business or interpersonal relations. So that is pretty much the concept of Geneivat Da'at. And I will give you a minute if you want to say anything about it, because I'm going to bring another layer to this debate that I think is going to make it even more interesting. But I will give you a chance to all of you if you want to say something about what we have discussed so far. Okay, let me take this to the next level, because we are talking about here about deceiving others. Let's read Actually, he said, a life based on a lie is not a life well lived. Yep. But let me take this to the next level. Let's read the next one together. Are you ready? Legally, it is only forbidden to defraud one's fellow. But a Hasid must go beyond the letter of the law and take care not to fool himself either. Aha! So, in other words, Rabbi Bunim is saying that that verse that we read at the beginning is not just talking about defrauding somebody else, but also the prohibition to fool yourself. And this is so common when we sometimes we think it's so cool, and we fool ourselves. We fool ourselves. It's very important to be honest with yourself. And this is something that Jewish tradition takes into consideration, because once a year we have the high holidays, and that's part of the self-evaluation that we have. We have to go through what we did right, what we did wrong, and you have to be honest with yourself. If you fool yourself during that time, you're not going to get any benefit from the high holidays. So what's the reason to fool yourself? You're not going to gain anything. You have to be honest with yourself if you want to improve your life. Otherwise, you're never going to get any better. And I understand sometimes going through what you did and taking responsibility for what you have done, it could be very painful, but it's necessary if you want to move to the next level. You see, I found this kind of a joke that I wanted to share with you. I said there is a story told of two motorcycle riders who got into a car accident that were taken to the emergency room. A doctor approached and began probing the leg of one of the men. The man grimaced in pain and screamed at the top of his lungs in agony. The doctor said he'd be back in a few minutes to examine the other rider. When he manipulated the other man's leg, he didn't let out a sound. When the doctor again left, his friend asked him how he was able to bravely submit to the examination so calmly. His friend said, "Are you kidding? After I saw what happened to you, do you think I was going to show him my bad leg?" It's like, who are you going to fool? If you don't accept that there is something to have to be improved, even if that is painful, the improvement will never happen. And yes, you can cover up things for a while, you can pretend that it's not there, but it will take you that far. It will take you that far. If you really want to take it to the next level, you have to stop defrauding yourself in the same way that you have to stop defrauding others. And I like what Rabbi Bunim says. Yes. You know, technically, nowhere is written that, at least not explicitly, that you cannot do that with yourself. But you should know better. You are a Jew. You study Torah. You try to understand what God wants from you beyond the pshat, the literal meaning. You know that the Torah goes further than that. So you should learn that lesson, that fooling yourself is as bad as fooling somebody else. I think it's a beautiful concept that we can all learn from that. And you see, and I want to share with you also a reflection about this from Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. This is what he said. How can you know something is wrong and yet do it anyway? This is beautiful. So simple, so powerful. How is it possible that we know that something is wrong and yet we do it anyway? Plato thought it was impossible. But Aristotle thought otherwise. He called it akrasia, weakness of will. The Bible begins with the most famous of all stories on this theme. Adam and Eve knew the fruit was forbidden, yet they went ahead and ate it anyway. The reaction when they heard God approaching was to hide, forgetting, as we still do, that when it comes to bad behavior, you can't hide forever. Sooner or later, you'll be found out. That's how paradise was lost. Sometimes very intelligent people, can throw away their whole lives, their careers, their reputation, their future happiness, because they can't resist temptation, because they think they can hide, they can cover up what they've done. They start by deceiving others, but they end by deceiving themselves. Which is why morality matters, and why we should always heed the inner voice we call conscience. It's there to guide us from principle to practice. It's our satellite navigation system as we chart our course through the wilderness of time. Being honest to others is the best way of being honest to ourselves. So in other words, I love this because he ends up saying something concrete. Specific advice for all of us. Why is the Torah putting so much emphasis on not deceiving others and doesn't say anything about not deceiving ourselves? Well, if I understand Rabbi Sachs' words, what he is implying is if you're a person who is used to never deceive other people, you're a person who also don't deceive yourself. The way you gain this the capacity of not deceive yourself is by not deceiving others. To develop that habit. And you know how things work. The more you do something, it becomes a habit. And a habit can make you or destroy you. Good habits moves you forward. Bad habits, all the opposite. So I believe this parsha is an invitation to develop the habit of being honest to others, because that eventually will lead to be honest to yourself. Any comments? And that was the last text that I have for you. So I will bring back my moving back to my room here, and I'd like to say again, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in today. And I forgot to say at the beginning, subscribe if you haven't done so, and hit the bell so you will be notified every time we go live, every time we upload something to our channels. So remember, next week we meet again, God willing, next Thursday at noon. And also remember, on May the 10th, I will be presenting you this little concert for Yom Yerushalayim. It's going to be at 7 p.m. this same channel, and then at 8 p.m. there is a specific Yom Yerushalayim gathering for young adults with Dr. Rina. So if you want to participate on that one, you have to register through the office. It's going to be a great meeting and session about Jerusalem with Dr. Rina Sectoral Baz. And then Shavuot is also coming, and we are preparing an amazing tikkun. We're going to do something so you will have the opportunity to study all night. And I know we don't have enough people at the Shaare Zedek to create like an all-night study session, but what we are going to do is Rina is going to teach from 8 to 9. I'm going to teach from 9 to 10. And then from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. is going to be pre-recorded classes playing all night on YouTube and Facebook. So if you want to study the first night of Shavuot, you are going to have an opportunity to study with me, with Rabbi Matthew, with Rina, but are going to be pre-recorded classes. We're going to try to select the best of what we've done last year, and I will put it together on a video so you can study all night if you wish to do so. And the good thing about that is you can't be late or you can be too early. The video is going to play from 10 to 6, and anytime you connect, you're going to have something there to study at any time you want. So don't miss that one. So thank you again for being there. Hope to see you soon. Stay safe, and bye for now. Have a good day, everyone.